Wow, is he ever losing control of himself? Oh my goodness. Screaming and hollering like that.
Welcome back to Northern Perspective, everyone. I'm Cypher.
And I'm Fox. January 31st was an important day in the House of Commons as the no confidence petition E-4701 was presented to the House by Michelle Ferrari. It was also the Pierre and Trudeau show in question period as they debated back and forth regarding many of the top issues that are plaguing Canadians right now. And when I say debated, I really mean that Pierre spoke with articulation and purpose, while Trudeau moved his mouth, emitting random sounds and incoherent babbling.
Let's take a look.
Mr. Speaker, our priorities are clear. We're going to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. Stop the auto theft that has run rampant under this Prime Minister. He's now throwing a cape over his back, claiming that he's the hero on auto theft, but it's actually tripled in Toronto. And it's up by 100% in Montreal after he brought in catch and release and house arrest for car thieves, and after his incompetence allowed our ports to spin out of control and our cars to be exported to overseas crime and terror networks. Why doesn't he reverse his policies instead of another meeting?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this is a serious situation. Canadians are concerned about this, and the Conservative leader just chooses to whip out his empty slogans and continue to blame everyone while we're getting to work. We're pulling together stakeholders and leaders from across the government to look at what more we can do. We've seen successes. CBSA agents have intercepted over 1,600 stolen cars last year in 2023, but there's more to do. We're going to continue to make the steady work and investments necessary to keep Canadians safe and to keep crime down.
You gotta love Trudeau. So there's a 100% increase in certain jurisdictions, and 40% in some others, 20%, 30%. Basically, when it comes down to it, car thefts are increasing dramatically under this Liberal government. And his solution isn't to look at, what did we do to cause this? His solution is, let's have a summit. Let's have a big meeting and get a whole bunch of people, waste more taxpayer dollars, not only federal taxpayer dollars, but let's waste provincial taxpayers dollars while we're at it, because that's what we're best at, is wasting people's money. And then we'll talk about that and we'll come up with no real solutions, because all we really do is throw money at problems and it never fixes it.
Well, and I love how Trudeau throws out the stat that they rescued, if you will, 1,600 cars from being shipped overseas last year. Meanwhile, the city of Ottawa last year, so 2023, there were 1,854 vehicles reported stolen. And that's just the city of Ottawa. Can you imagine places like Toronto or Vancouver or the rest of the country?
Thousands.
So the cars that they did rescue don't even add up to what was stolen in one city.
Yeah, never mind the rest of them. And again, 1,600 out of how many? That's the problem. He doesn't give you the total that were not rescued and just disappeared from their owners.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Keep crime down. Crime is way up. Violent crime is up 40% under this Prime Minister. And today he had his ministers hold a big press conference as their solution. And in it, they put out a press release that said, and I quote, "In 2022, approximately 9,600 vehicles were stolen in the Toronto area alone, representing a 300% increase since 2015, end quote. Wow. What happened in 2015? I know, he happened, Mr. Speaker. How can we make him unhappen and stop the crime?
You really...
I love that. You can hear the Conservatives in the background. What happened?
Well, and just the way Pierre approaches this it's so comical. And I know some people get kind of bothered that they see kind of this playfulness in question period, but it's done for a reason, right? The theatrics that go on from the Conservative Party in question period, it's done for the reason to, comedy is often rooted in truth, right? And you want to try not to just make people, angry about everything all the time. Sometimes you need to laugh to actually, release some of that irritation, some of that anxiety, and that's a way to do it. But it's also used to expose the complete hypocrisy of this Liberal government and the corruption, and just show everybody that, listen, things were not the best, but they were pretty good in 2015 compared to now, which they're completely and utterly atrocious, to the point where all you see online is Liberal quote-unquote influencers trying to dig up rankings, world ranking lists that have Canada at the top as the best place to live on the planet.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Sometimes I go over to Reddit and I look at the leftist subreddits, and people are like gaslighting themselves into believing that the Liberals are doing a good job, and everything was Stephen Harper's fault, and Pierre is going to be even worse, and things are just wonderful under Trudeau. Like, there was one comment I was reading, I couldn't believe it, where they were trying to justify the poverty in Canada and the decline in our quality of living, and saying, well, other countries have lived like that for a long time, and now Canadians are being brought down to that level, and it's okay. Like, it was a very bizarre line of thinking, and that's probably why I'm not explaining it very well. But they're just trying to make sense out of things that you can't make sense out of in order to fit their belief structure, which is that the Liberals are doing a good job and Pierre's going to come in and, I don't know, do a horrible job.
Yeah, like it's something else, right? It really is, when you have all of these Liberals trying to gaslight everybody. But, there's all of this is rooted in fact. And there's one fact that we've shown before that we'd like to show again, and that's this. This is a graph illustrating the violent crime rate in Canada from 2000 to 2021. Now, what happened here? So under the previous Liberal government, this was the Paul Martin government, it was really high. And then as soon as the Conservatives took over, it dropped, like, significantly, by over 35%.
Well, and the other stat that the Liberals usually throw out is how Stephen Harper was taking money away from Corrections Canada. Well, if you don't have all these people in jail because crime is on the decline, then you don't need to be spending all this money on jails, on court systems, on corrections. Right.
And so as soon as Trudeau introduced this legislation, crime skyrocketed. So, I don't know how much more you need other than this visual aid to show what the policy differences are between a Liberal and a Conservative government.
Well, and take a look at the last 3 dots on that chart. You know why there's a dip? Because in 2020, everybody was locked down in our houses.
There you go.
That's the only time crime went down under this Liberal government.
So based on the rate from 2018 and 2019, one would expect that would have been skyrocketing even more. So the Liberals should actually thank their own lockdown policies for preventing that rate from soaring even higher.
In 2015, Stephen Harper presented a budget that had slashed funds for policing, slashed funds for CBSA officers, slashed funding for Veterans Affairs Services, and we were there to clean up the mess, to cut taxes for the wealthiest 1%, lower them for the middle class, to support families, to start moving forward on gun control in real ways, while the Conservatives cozy up to the American gun lobbies. We've continued to step up and keep Canadians safe. Let them bring assault weapons back to our streets. We'll keep Canadians safe.
Really? That's really all I have to say of that. Really?
Do we show him the chart again?
Like,
sheesh, maybe we should mail him a copy.
Trudeau, chart. Look at what you've done. Yeah, cleaning up the mess? Really? Are you kidding me? This is the chart. That's all you need to know. A picture is worth 1,000 words, and those 1,000 words in this picture completely refute your mess assertion that you just made. So I don't want to hear it.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Wow, is he ever losing control of himself? Oh my goodness. Screaming and hollering like that. Mr. Speaker, it's his press release that says that in Toronto, auto thefts are up 300% since he took office. His solution is to hold a summit. He held a summit on food prices. Food prices went up. He held a summit on housing. Housing costs doubled. How much is crime going to rise after all the bigwigs go to his summit?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
You know, it's funny. One thing that you can tell with that crazy rambling that Trudeau just did is that was rehearsed.
Yeah, because he was saying,
That's right. So I can't help but laugh picturing Trudeau in front of a mirror practicing this speech like the drama teacher he is. And like, oh no, that wasn't right. I need to start over again. Blah, 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 blah. And it's
don't forget to make your angry face.
Oh, yeah. Volume, project from your diaphragm. Jeez.
Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition has trouble believing that we would actually include real facts in our press release, something he and the Harper government never did for years. Yes, Mr. Speaker, there is a real challenge around auto theft in this country, and our solution is to roll up our sleeves, pull together partners from across the country, and get to solving it. His solution, throw his hands up in the air, blame a raft of political attacks on us, and continue to see that he's not putting forward any real solutions, Mr. Speaker.
He's the leader of the opposition. It's not his job to put forward solutions. It is his job to tell you that you're doing a shit job.
Right. And call out crap when he sees it. And it's pretty easy because it's a great big pile of crap all around Canada. And that's come from your mouth, Trudeau. Your mouth, and ruling from a podium, and these ad hoc policies that come out of your mouth at these press conferences that surprise the rest of the Liberal cabinet, and they just have to follow through and somehow figure it out. That's the reason why Canada is in the state that it is.
Well, and the issue with the vehicle thefts is it is very much organized crime. And they use older teenagers who are still under the age of 18, though, to steal these vehicles because they know if they get caught, they won't be facing any real time due to Canada's juvenile offender laws.
Yep.
And that's how this is accomplished.
And the other thing to notice is while Trudeau is spewing this crap, when it's not a rehearsed and predetermined standing ovation, look at some of the Liberals in the back. They're a little blurred out, but the looks on their faces say everything that needs to be said. They're looking at Trudeau saying, oh God, please shut up. Like that's the real cabinet. That's the real lack of support and authenticity that these Liberals have for the leader of their party.
Prime Minister needs a summit to find out about the problem of auto theft. We can help him. He is the problem. It was his policies that caused the 300% increase in auto theft in Toronto. He's asked for solutions. Well, we have some of those too. Will the Prime Minister agree to reverse his catch and release bail policy for car thieves, end house arrest for those who steal cars, and put an end to his incompetence at the Port of Montreal, from which so many of our vehicles are being shipped to organized crime and terrorist networks abroad?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what's interesting about the Leader of the Opposition is he doesn't actually care about auto theft. He cares about making a good political attack on the government because people are facing real challenges. What we are focused on is solving the challenges. What we are focused on is initiatives like we announced today of $121 million to fight auto theft in Ontario. We've been working to bring together stakeholders and leaders across the country to bring forward more positive solutions to build on the 1,600 recovered autos that we prevented from being stolen last year.
Oh, he's starting to slip off the edge. You hear it?
Yeah, because he knows he's in trouble.
He's really starting to slip off the edge in terms of his stability and his speaking. He's getting rattled, everybody. This is going to get interesting real quick.
Not only is he not worth the cost, he's not worth the crime, and now he's spreading disinformation. Years after he promised he was going to ban these so-called military assault rifles, they're still legal in Canada, and he's paying foreign hunters to get into helicopters and fly around over Vancouver Island to slaughter deer that our hunters would have taken down for free for the meat. When will this Prime Minister stop his policy of targeting lawful Canadians and go after the real criminals that are terrorizing our streets?
So Pierre's not making stuff up there. There was actually a story that dropped recently about this culling that went on in Vancouver, where they were actually shooting deer from a helicopter. Like, you can't make this stuff up, people. So Canadians aren't allowed to use rifles to hunt deer, but people from other countries are allowed to come into our country and do the exact same thing.
Maybe they should just release a bunch of wolves the way they did in Yellowstone.
Oh, well, and then they'll have to hire some foreign hunters to come in and kill the wolves. So you can't win.
Contortions the leader of the official opposition goes through to try and talk about gun control are quite impressive, Mr. Speaker, but Canadians will not be fooled by him. The order in council that made assault-style weapons illegal to use, to purchase, or to share or sell is still in place. The Conservative Party of Canada has as its official position that it wants to restore the legality of assault-style weapons in this country.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Wow, I think that's the first time I've ever heard Fergus cut the mic on Justin Trudeau.
Yeah, because he went too long. But wow, he is so rattled right now. That's what happens when you have Pierre coming at you and just literally dropping facts. And he's supporting his arguments with those facts. And we'll support our arguments again. Okay, so remember, we did have gun control before the Liberals came in. Look at the violent crime rate. And they put in their quote-unquote new gun control, and now look what happened.
Well, and they're targeting the wrong demographic. They're trying to take away rifles from licensed gun owners. And we've seen the stats before, and we know that they're the least likely group to commit gun crimes.
Right. So you've wasted all of this time and effort to go after those people.
Why don't you stop guns coming in from the United States? That's where the problem is.
Well, and again, you reverse your catch and release policy when it comes to violent offenders. For those that don't know what it is, based on the liberal ideology of, well, we don't want to discriminate against people, virtually every single violent offender that comes in front of a court is released the same day. And that's how people... Like, there was there was a group of guys in Vancouver that committed 6,000 crimes in a year. Like, duh, because they keep getting arrested and then released. They're not put in jail because of Trudeau's policy.
Well, and Trudeau's policy says something to the effect of, we don't want to discriminate against marginalized groups. So instead, they release criminals back into the community where they're free to commit crimes against everybody.
Right.
So you're putting everybody else at risk.
Right.
How is that fair? How is that right?
Well, because we're prioritizing people over skin color versus over the offense that they actually commit against society. Because, that's the liberal way. So, this is just absolutely bonkers, and it has nothing to do with gun control.
Mr. Speaker, he stumbles and bumbles when he does not know what he's talking about, and he does not know what he's talking about because he does not care what he's talking about. He still has not banned those guns. Years after promising on the election trail that he did, they are still legally in the possession of their owners at this stage, and he says he won't be able to do it until a week after the next election. Meanwhile, he tried to publish 300 pages of hunting rifles that he wanted to ban, blaming First Nations hunters for crime in downtown Toronto. Why does he want to protect turkeys from hunters instead of Canadians from criminals?
There you go.
Good question, Pierre.
Like, it's very simple. Lay out your argument, support it with facts and common sense. This is why Pierre is so effective at taking Trudeau down, because he cuts through the bullshit.
Mr. Speaker, as of a number of years ago, it is illegal to buy, sell, or use or bequeath military-style or assault-style weapons in this country. We did that. We banned over 1,600 models of assault-style weapons. The Conservative Party wants to make those assault-style weapons legal again. And everything they do is focused on misinformation and disinformation, of bringing in hunters who are not targeted by these measures to try and justify their anchoring on the NRA.
What? They're anchoring on the NRA?
Canada doesn't have an NRA.
Oh
That's the
God.
U.S. And he accuses Pierre of bringing in U.S.-style politics.
And he accuses of Pierre bringing in misinformation and disinformation. You literally ended that statement with a complete lie. So, we're not in Parliament. We can call it out as we see it.
More stumbling and bumbling, Mr. Speaker. The guns he talked about are not banned. And he says they will not be banned until 1 week after the next election, because he cannot figure out how to ban them, years after he announced it. Meanwhile, he's spending billions of dollars going after licensed, law-abiding, trained and tested people who've proven that they are statistically the least likely to commit crime. And what has been the consequence? In 8 years, we've had a 100% increase in criminal shootings. Why does he always go after the good guys instead of putting the bad guys in jail?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in May of 2020, we rendered it illegal to buy or sell or use or bequeath 1,600 different models of assault-style weapons in this country. That is still the case, Mr. Speaker. In the coming year, we will be bringing in an amnesty legacy program. We are extending the amnesty to be able to bring in a buyback for the owners of these weapons. But we are moving forward on gun control when he wants to bring assault-style weapons back to Canadians.
That was amazing. Did you hear all the Conservatives laughing at him?
Yeah, because he can't even talk about his own policies.
No,
like,
he
this
can't.
This is the thing.
Do you think after question period, Trudeau's all like, yeah, I sure showed him?
Oh, I think he is. I think he is. But you just have to look at the look on Anita Anand's face. Yeah, that's probably she's annoyed by the Conservatives. But come on, you can't tell me that face is also not just annoyance with Trudeau and Freeland. Like, it's been shown that there's a rift between Anand and Freeland, and Freeland is like the groupie that follows Trudeau everywhere. And her head's going to fall off whenever, you see her listening to one of his speeches. She's shaking it so much. So, Anand must be annoyed to death versus his incompetence and inability to actually speak a coherent sentence.
Oh, and beyond that, I think there's definitely some rivalry there between Anand and Freeland, because they probably both think that they're going to be the next leader of the Liberal Party.
And they both would be wrong.
And we will continue to do that. Yes, we can be a reliable partner, and we have shown it quite often, and we will always be. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Prime Minister has hit Canadian farmers with a carbon tax that drives up food prices at the grocery store. Food prices that are rising again only months after he promised they would come down. I asked him late last year if he would talk to the Medeiros farm about their rising carbon tax bill. They just got their bill for December, and it is $21,000 in carbon taxes alone. I ask now, as I asked back then, how exactly will the Medeiros family pay this bill when it quadruples to over $80,000 a year?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
It's interesting that the Conservative leader is asking the government to help out the Medeiros family farm now, because back in 2014, when the Medeiros fan came to him in government, asked him for some support as they were trying to make investments, trying to continue to move forward, he told them that they needed to stand on their own 2 feet. That's what he told that farm. Mr. Speaker, we are there to support farmers right across the country with $1.5 billion over the past few years in investments, in supports. We're going to continue to be there for farmers as they fight climate change.
Now, normally we would typically fact check this kind of claim, but we don't have to. Pierre, we'll let this one go to you.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Actually, when the Medeiros family asked for me for help, I went to Enbridge and helped them get lower cost natural gas to power their operation, Mr. Speaker. That's the real story. So instead of reading the disinformation from the kids in short pants over in PMO, why doesn't he deal with the thing that's really hurting that family right now? A $21,000 monthly carbon tax bill that is passed on to the trucker who ships the food and the grocer who sells the food. So once again, how much will Canadians have to pay in higher food prices when he quadruples the carbon tax?
And that's called fact checking in real time, everybody. That's called knowing your stuff.
But above and beyond that, it sounds to me like the Medeiros family went to their member of parliament, who's probably Pierre, and said, you know, we're experiencing these high bills. What can you do to help us? And instead of doing what the Liberals do and go, oh, we'll just chuck money at it, he actually solved the problem at its root.
Right. And then what happened? The Liberals took over and then started penalizing that same farmer, as well as the hundreds and thousands of farmers across this country, for using natural gas.
Well, and this is the thing about the Conservatives, is that they don't say, oh, well, just here's some money or here's some tax breaks or here's something that'll kind of get you by, but you still have to rely on the government. They'll solve the problem at the root. They will create a good economy for all of us so that we can thrive and break our dependence on this Liberal government.
The Opposition.
He mentions drugs. That's another crisis that he has caused, Mr. Speaker. But back to the cost of food, heat, and groceries. This Prime Minister plans to raise the carbon tax again on April 1st. Another hike to the gas, the heat, the grocery bills. Another hit to the Nova Scotia families who can't afford to pay their utility bills. And another hit to working class families while he jets around the world carbon tax free. If he can't have the common sense to axe the tax, will he at least cancel his plan to hike the tax on April 1st?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
You know what the Leader of the Opposition is proposing to cut for Canadians? Tax.
I don't even care what Trudeau has to say. He's trying to shout over the Conservatives. That was amazing. That was amazing. And that's their platform. They're going to cut the carbon tax.
Like, he just walked right into Oh my goodness. And it's funny because it's so predictable that the Conservatives have already predetermined, okay, so he's probably going to ask this question. As soon as he does, taxes.
Yeah, it was seamless. It was amazing.
So anyway, we're not going to subject you to any more of Justin Trudeau. What we will allow you the privilege of seeing is the answer to a lot of your questions as to when is the no confidence petition going to be presented to Parliament. And what Fox and I have been predicting is the week that Parliament returns, which is this week, this was going to be used as, you know, more of a prop because there's no binding action that comes out of this, but used to wave around and really show Parliament, mainly the NDP, what Canadians actually think. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Michelle Ferreri and the no confidence petition E4701.
Presenting petitions, the honourable member for Peterborough.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to present e-petition 4701, the highest signed e-petition in Canadian history with 387,487 signatures. The petitioners state that they have lost confidence in the Prime Minister. The petitioners ask The state and the current government is not acting in the best interest of all citizens, and the petitioners call upon the House of Commons to call for a vote of non-confidence in a federal election 45 days following the vote.
Excellent. Excellent. And I think that vote's gonna happen, because 45 days from now is roughly March 15th. It's the middle of March, maybe March 16th.
Yeah, it's March 16th to be precise, but it's a Saturday, so obviously the House won't be sitting. But the day before, the Friday, is March 15th. Now, we know that there's a budget vote sometime in March. We don't know exactly when.
Yeah, and even if there isn't, I expect that there's going to be a vote of non-confidence put to the House around that time. So, the fact that they have laid this out with that timeline, this seems to me, the way they presented it, as if it's more than just a bit of a show. This is now a clock that's ticking.
Well, and don't forget, the pharmacare deal between the NDP and the Liberals expires on March 1st.
Yeah, technically expired on December 31st, if you recall, but Jagmeet agreed to an extension to March 1st. And I don't think that there's going to be an extension beyond that. I also don't really have a lot of confidence that this is going to get done because, again, the Liberals can't go far enough to what the NDP want. Why? Because of the pharmacare lobbyists and the insurance lobbyists. They would be giving up hundreds of millions of dollars a year if they actually allowed this to happen. Because think of all the drug plans that would disappear from corporate expenses that they are paying these organizations, and think about the pricing decreases that the pharmacies would have to agree to. So it's not in their best interest to go down this path. Now, we'll see, because again, now the clock's ticking. They've said 45 days. So this is a signal to the Bloc, and for all of you that are concerned about the Bloc actually said the other day at a press conference, Yves Blanchette, they were asked about, Pierre's accusation of towing the line for the Liberal economic policy, and Blanchette retorted back saying, "We haven't once voted for a Liberal budget. We voted against them." That was a signal by Blanchette saying, we're not intending to support the next budget. Why would they? That would actually go against a lot of the arguments that Quebec is putting forward because of all of the money they're not getting from the federal government. So that's that put to bed. So now it's on Jagmeet. And ladies and gentlemen, there's something in the air.
Well, and let's not forget also that the minimum amount of time between when Parliament is dissolved and between election day needs to be a minimum of 36 days. Which, if we are correct and they call it, say, March 15th, then we're looking at April 20th for an election.
So if they indeed make it that in that time frame, the election actually occurs before the next boundary change.
Which is April the 22nd.
Despite the fact that Elections Canada says that the election just has to be called before April 22nd.
So it is extremely possible that we find out in March that we're going to be headed to the polls.
So we'll see. Now, we're not done yet. We have one more petition to show you, because the Liberals refuse to be outdone by a 380 some odd thousand signature petition. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Gerritsen.
The Honourable Deputy House Leader.
Yeah, I will top that. Mr. Speaker, I have today with me a petition that's been called upon by Canadians that specifically address the fact that this House no longer unanimously supports Ukraine. The petitioners call on all members of Parliament to immediately and swiftly pass Bill C-57, which is an important update to the Canada Free Trade. I will say, Mr. Speaker, in all my time presenting a petition, I have never been heckled by the Conservatives, but they're literally heckling me while I'm trying to present a petition on behalf of Canadians.
Well, there's a reason for that. So let's just show you Mr. Gerritson's petition. Here it is. So this is petition 441-02037, Business and Trade. And where it says, well, you know, Bill C-57, it's important update to the Canadian Free Trade Agreement, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And yes, they think this is important. Notice what he didn't say when he was presenting his petition that Michelle Ferreri said. He didn't talk about how many people signed this petition. How many people signed this petition, you wonder? Well, let's just scroll down and look. Ladies and gentlemen, Canadians are so concerned about this issue. It is so top of mind from coast to coast that a grand total of 30 people signed this.
That is less than 0.008% of the number of people that signed Michelle Ferreri's petition.
Right. That's 0.008%. 30 people. This was all the Liberals could do to come up with.
To try to paint the Conservatives as, you know, horrible and evil and whatever.
And it's all they had to counter this petition calling for a vote of non-confidence. Remember what he said at the beginning? Oh, I will top that. You'll top that with 30 signatures? Dude, you probably just pass this around the Liberal cabinet and not even all of them would sign it. That's probably where this came from. Like, come on. This is the depth at which the Liberals will stoop to in terms of misinformation. And the funny thing is, this is the thing that the Liberals talk about the most when it comes to Parliament and parliamentary debate. Trudeau and the rest of them are constantly saying, oh, well, you know, the Conservatives aren't supporting Ukraine. Well, it looks like the vast majority of Canadians agree with the Conservatives because nobody signed your damn petition on it. So you actually ended up destroying your own argument by bringing this up. You should have kept this behind because this is now an easy prop for the Conservatives to talk about.
But you know something? This is very characteristic of the Liberals, that they push and they push and they push for something that only a small fraction of Canadians feel strongly about, and they ignore what the vast majority of us want and need, which is a new government.